All right, here we go. So, Cody Sanchez put this video out a month ago. I'm really curious to see what she has to say. She says this business will always be in demand, that it's unbeatable. And she says she has the data to prove it. Honestly, never seen this video before. Love a lot of her content, but really interested to see. And, I'm usually pretty pro Cody Sanchez in most things, but some of these businesses she says that are super easy to start, I will say, as a business owner myself, I have my doubts. So let's just jump into the video and see what she has to say.
How do you know if a business will be successful or not? You follow the data, or what's called the Lindy effect. Basically, the longer a business has been in existence, the more likely it will continue to be in business. So while 20% of businesses fail within the first year, 2/3 fail within 10 years. So we come to New York City to show you these 7 businesses that are the longest standing businesses here, so you can copy their homework. It's a rock sign.
So right off the bat, I already agree with the premise of this. And what a lot of people say is, don't try and create a new business. Don't try and create the new Facebook, the next Amazon, the next Apple. Those businesses are very rare and often fail. But the rewards are outside, like extremely outside its returns. If you look at like Amazon, it's probably the best stock to ever put your money in the history of the stock market. Apple is up there with it, Microsoft, like all of these companies. However, they're very, very, very difficult businesses to start. It's very hard. You're talking about pioneering new technologies that don't exist. There are lots of points of failure and lots of points where your competitors will just rip your throat out. Now, the premise of businesses existing for a long time, that is a really good thing. For example, and not a lot of people think this, and a lot of farmers will laugh at you, but farms have been around for thousands of years. And if you can get the right farm for the right price, with water rights in the right ground, farms can be a very, very consistent source of income. It's because you're producing food that people need to eat. However, there's a lot of difficult things with farms as well. But like other types of businesses, these boring businesses that Cody talks about, like concrete companies, construction companies, laundromats, like these things people need, they have to have in their daily lives, but they're really relatively simple-ish businesses. You're not pioneering new technologies, and you're really utilizing things that have existed for a long time.
We're going to teach you exactly how you could own these same types of businesses. By the way, I own Main Street Holding Company and Contrarian Thinking Capital. We own 24 businesses, so I know a thing or two about this. Let's start with Moscot. This company, founded in 1989, it actually started as a push cart vendor. You know those guys with the little carts with all the wares in them? Down in the tenement district, which is like not the rich district in New York. This business is fascinating because it's eyewear. So back in the day, that used to be a healthcare company. These days, it's what I would call a retail or an e-commerce company, but the story is pretty sweet, and I'll tell you why I think this business is.
So if you don't live in New York, big way you can hop on this, same way they started with their little roll carts, vending machines. You can put them there. They don't require you to be there 24/7, but literally like eyeglasses, if you had very common prescriptions in a vending machine, super easy way to like get minimum viable product if you can place it in the right area where there's enough foot traffic. And same concept.
Survived this long.
You're always going to have a bunch of people that need to have prescription glasses, and they want to be a little cooler the way that they wear them. That is going to continue to evolve. If you want to get a little piece of a market that already exists, eyewear is probably always going to be there because people are going to need to see. Second part of the market is sunglasses, which they have a huge component of it. Same exact thing. For as long as people are out in the sun, there's going to be people that need sunglasses, which is why there are thousands of these brands today.
This is a big business. 200.
No, she said thousands of brands. Most of them are all owned under the company Sunglasses Hut, which I love to hate on that company. I wish there was more companies that did them, but there are thousands of brands. And the thing is they just end up buying up those brands so they can maintain their, essentially monopoly on the market.
15 billion in eyewear in total addressable market by 2025. What's interesting is about 90%, 89.7% to be precise, is located in retail, brick and mortar, not online. These guys, I think, maybe had some 20/20 vision when they were picking their addressable market. So this is like a rags to.
The really crazy thing is there's a very large percentage of Americans. I'm gonna have to like look this up real quick, actually. Percentage of Americans that need glasses but don't know, or I mean, I might have to type in undiagnosed. already there, like total addressable market 61 and 31% for nearsighted and farsighted. But there's actually a really large 75% of adults need some form of vision, but like a very large percentage of these adults actually don't know that they need glasses. They just think everything's all hunky-dory, they can see good enough.
To riches entrepreneurial story, right? From the tiny push cart to a huge brand, where now the hippest of the hip buy these sunglasses. They're pretty expensive and they're kind of iconic, but it might not be for the reasons that you think.
Now, what would I do if I was going to do it today? There's really, if I'm going with an eyewear brand or something that I really consider an accessory, which this is a cool factor. The only way that you're going to make real money in this space is if you can charge a premium. And the only way you can charge a premium is typically if you have better distribution than everybody else, because you can get more people to buy and more people to think that you are valuable. The fastest way to do that would probably be to partner with somebody who's cool, which is why you see a bunch of celebrities that have sunglass lines or eyewear lines like this. So I would try to figure out who could be your cool factor or what could be your cool factor.
The Algonquin Hotel. This business has existed since 1902. Famous hotel by a guy by the name of Frank Case. Fascinating story. He basically came up with a bunch of weird ideas about how to make a hotel unique, like a hotel cat. Obviously, who doesn't want one of those? He also came up with something called the $10,000 martini, which was sort of like something sexy to get PR and to get people into the hotel. As you can tell, well, you kind of can't tell because there's a bunch of stuff on here, but this is old. And it's in this area where they've basically torn down a bunch of the rest of the big buildings, but this one's kept up, and it might not be for the reason you think.
Ever wondered why you should get an LLC with a third party when...
So what I loved, what she was talking about was that marketing stunt of the $10,000 martini. Super smart thing to do to get free publicity. It's a little bit hard to do that now, but it's kind of the same strategy, making some, like a hyperbole, something so extreme that people can't quite believe it, right?
brands is not about...
How about instead of telling you how I would start this business, why don't I tell you how I did start this business? It's Airbnb. So I think hotels are the 2.0, 3.0 way to start doing hospitality. Airbnbs are 1.0. You start with like a cheap Airbnb that everybody has. You make your Airbnb more unique, like my friend Rob built. You can see some of the unique ones he's built. And then eventually you scale that up to multiple properties and then a hotel. I would never start with a hotel. Start with something little and then build your way up until you're really good. Also, this book's amazing, Unreasonable Hospitality, if you haven't read.
I've read this book, can't recommend this book enough. Literally insane. I want to go to the guy's restaurant in New York just to see. Also, I love Shake Shack, so.
That incredible book all about the hospitality industry.
Let's talk.
I like what she said about the hotels though being like, or Airbnbs being 1.0 and hotels being like the 2.0, 3.0 version, because, and like the real value of the hotels, I feel like, is the power of the real estate. Because if you can get prime real estate, like in downtown areas, it just continues to build and compound over time. But to get started is like doing Airbnbs. And Airbnbs aren't as easy to do as other things, but you can get good cash flow. You can get really good tax depreciation to offset if you have like a higher income job or business. And it can be a really good way to develop assets that would be otherwise harder to buy and or rent just based off of where the markets are at.
Marketing. So the guy creates this $10,000 martini, which is basically a normal martini with a bit of ice in the bottom, which is actually a diamond, only in New York. But he didn't just do the fancy thing. He actually gave discounts to struggling authors because he wanted to have the cool kids in town located here. Now there's a couple problems. Hotels in general I don't love because they are real estate categorized as a business, which means they're really expensive. You gotta have this big, huge property. But this one's interesting because they eventually have been bought again and again and again by a bunch of different people, including now they're an autograph collection hotel. Another thing that's fascinating is these franchise hotel brands can control the fact that a lot of these businesses have tiny margins.
For my Airbnbs, we get pretty fancy. And I want to show you some examples, not of mine in particular, but one of my friends, because it's public on the internet. Basically, here is an entire movie theater in the backyard, just by having a screen that you pull down and get to project things on, having little lighting across all of it. Really important too in Airbnbs and hotels is what's called a magic moment. So what that means is there's somewhere that somebody wants to go, Instagram photo. So what does that look like? It looks like murals. Rob Built's got a disco ball in the middle of a table that's for a bachelorette party in Austin, Texas. The whole place is pink. He's got a pink pickleball court in the backyard. These days, people want to stay in Airbnbs, but they want to feel like it's special. There's nothing worse than going to a gross, gnarly, smelly, corporate feeling Airbnb. You want to feel like you're having an experience, and it's not that expensive to do inside of an Airbnb. So a lot of these businesses.
Yeah, that's like the key differentiator, especially with where Airbnb is at right now, because the price is just so high, at least in my opinion, where it's like you might as well just go stay at a hotel room where he'll change your sheets on the daily and you don't have some guy named Steve threatening your security deposit if you don't do everything he says. And that differentiator is, like she said, providing an experience.
Businesses have been around for decades because of the necessity their community feels about the services they provide. One thing that may not be on this list, but I think is necessary, therapy. Definitely needed. I used to think that therapy was only needed during major problems, but now I know that the consistent maintenance of this is so crucial in handling the stresses of business and life. I will always recommend therapy to my loved ones. And since I love y'all, I want to tell you about BetterHelp, the sponsor of today's video. We're going to have a moments hit. That's within 40 time. But a few questions during sign up wrong bank accounts.
Disappointed in the BetterHelp ad. Just disappointed.
William Pole is a total staple. It was started in 1921, and what's fascinating about this is it's a deli, right? But for European delicacies. Upper East Side of New York, a little bit fancy smancy. Christine Pole is the wife of the husband of this aptly named deli, and she actually became sort of famous on the food scene for creating some of their own food and styles. They're known for like these little delicacies and canapes. Now what's interesting about this is a couple things. One, tiny spot. Two, look, it's all named. So it basically got its own white labeled product line. You've got a bunch of dips here, you've got a bunch of crackers. Then over here, what do you have but prepackaged nuts? I imagine sold at quite a bit of a markup, but because it's their name on it, it's institutional.
Also, just side note here, she's doing all these businesses that have been in New York forever. The U.S. actually has one of the youngest average corporation ages in the world. Be really interesting to see a version of this done in Japan, because there's literally businesses there that are like over 1,000 years old, which is just wild. And I actually think the business that is the oldest is like 1,400 or 1,200 years old, and it's actually a hotel in Japan.
Really smart move, tiny location, all pre-made food, nothing cooked on site, and as you can see, this place is about 60%, it sells its own stuff, not even third-party product, which is probably why they've stayed in business. Also, they have e-commerce, so tiny storefront, big name, big e-commerce company.
If I was going to do this business today, how would I think about doing it? I would actually not partner with a celebrity on this business, because who's going to buy ham sent to your house from a celebrity? I don't know, maybe that exists. Instead, I would go try.
Of all the celebrities to choose, I feel like Taylor Swift would have the best shot of selling ham, or for that matter, literally anything besides maybe MAGA hats, because that doesn't really align with her, but literally anything else, I think she would have the best shot of selling. Her brand power is just literally insane.
Try to find a distribution partner. What do I mean by that? I would go and try to find who are the biggest distributors for food products to big grocery stores, because we still buy our groceries from big grocery stores. So the only way to do this and crush it, in my opinion, is to cozy up to your Whole Foods distributor, the person who buys different products for Whole Foods. You can actually do this easier than you might think. You're like, well, Cody, I don't live in Austin like you, where the headquarters of Whole Foods is. You know what I would do instead? There's something called a local buyer for every grocery store. So the local buyer is in charge of making the market feel like it is a local community store. You could probably search them out on LinkedIn. You could probably Google them. You find your local buyer for local grocery stores, and you partner with them. You might find a third-party product that's not even yours, and all your job is to get it in stores, get it in stores, get it in stores. This business has survived a long time. It's also a hard business. It's a food business and a perishable good business, so be careful on this one, even though I imagine they're still always going to be here.
John Gallen and Son, construction founded in 1886 by John Gallen, obviously. The construction company is kind of fascinating. It's been in the family for decades. The interesting part about this is, what is the business of New York at its very core? It's real estate. It's building big, huge businesses. This type of business is never going to not be needed. They started off in masonry and concrete, then they got huge projects. Fascinating is it's gone through 7 generations, and the younger generations, they got to put in some work. We're talking about going from laborers and masons and men with their hands actually building things to running the fancy office building. But it all actually starts right here. because it's construction. Chris Gallen, one of the sons, had a great quote. He said his father always used to tell them that only two things are always true in construction. Sometimes you're slow, but you're going to get busy. And sometimes when you're busy, you know that you're eventually going to get slow. If you can manage the change between the two, you can make a lot of money.
What's interesting about these guys is that they've carried it through multiple generations and also focused on the most profitable parts of construction businesses, which are real estate development firms and specialized trades like HVAC, plumbing, and electrical, and the construction they're in. The other thing that this company's done that's interesting is now they focus on VC startup headquarter build out. I bet that business sucks right now, but that business was awesome since like 2009, 2010 for the whole run up. If I was going to do this business today, what would I do? Truly, guys, I would buy this business. There are so many small businesses out there in the construction space that have owners that are 65 plus years old that are getting ready to retire. Likely, you're not like a construction guru, a general contractor. You don't know how to lay foundation. So if you're gonna start a construction business, unlike some of those other ones with Airbnbs, why wouldn't you just buy all the SOPs, processes, homework, people, and clients, and have a profitable business day one? Also, if you like that idea, click the link below. Our team tells people how we would think about starting to buy a business. If you're interested, it'll take you through a little one-step process and you can see if this might be a fit for you.
So like most of the trades, they got a big issue, which is skilled laborers. Kids aren't going into the trades anymore, so they've actually got to fill these construction jobs, which in New York are largely union jobs, but they don't have a bunch of people to fill them with. How do they deal with this? Well, interesting, they have a lot of loyalty to their people. They didn't fire or lay off a single person in 2008. The company kept going, kept paying, even when the rest of the industry was deciding to. This is a big industry. I'm talking $2.1 trillion in assets constructed. When somebody asked Chris Gallen, one of the guys who runs it, what they do for a living, he said, we deliver a good night's sleep. Which if you think about it, you hope your building's made well.
The next thing I would do after I bought a construction company is I would really niche down. Riches are in niches. So instead of saying I'm a construction company for everybody, I would do what these guys did. Pick a niche. Say that you build all the startup VC headquarters located in Phoenix, Arizona. It's way easier.
So true. It's way easier to serve one market than it is to serve all of these like different random markets. And that's what really kills you as a business, is when you start doing that.
To get higher ranking online with niche specialization, plus your portfolio all looks the same. I would also do one other thing. I would get a signature look. I would use Instagram to have a signature look for all the construction that I did. Frank Lloyd Wright was a really famous architect in Arizona, and all of his buildings looked the same way. When you do that, people sort of seek after you like they would an artist. That's what I would do if I was going to do it today.
This is the year end, started in 18.
I think that last one, though, is very, very difficult to do. Here, we're going to pause this real quick. I'm getting this thing. I guess I've been temporarily blocked here. Interesting. Well, let's just go back and see if we can just finish this video. I'm assuming it's from some of the audio, I guess.
Bad Boy was actually a prohibition-style speakeasy back in the day. This thing has had a bunch of iterations, from a bar to a...
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know if I can appeal this because I'm a freaking small account, but I should be just fine because I'm adding commentary on this. Interesting. I don't know what's up with this.
restaurant to back to a bar again. This is really a 2-for-1, because see this top area up there? That has been both a smuggler's den, a brothel, and also a boarding house where people could stay if they were doing activities, if they were not doing activities. You know, double the income, really. This industry's big. The bar industry is about a $247 billion industry.
I will say, though, I've heard bars are a nightmare to run just because of the lifestyle. You're usually up till 2 a.m., you know, doing the register, making sure everything's clean. However, there can be really good margin in alcohol. It's just making sure you have the right managers in place and enough scale that it doesn't necessarily revolve you being there at the bar at 2 a.m. when it closes every single night.
And there's a lot of them, 67,000 bars and nightclubs in the US. Now, the industry doesn't actually grow that much, by about 1% a year, but I have a bunch of friends that own bars and nightclubs. And the whole game is, can you make enough money in the first couple of years? Because typically these bad boys do not last 100 years like this one has. The ones that do are often kind of the same shakedown. They're small, so they don't have a huge square footage. They play into the fact that they're old, so they're not always trying to do the hot new next concept. They're typically cheaper because people are really just looking for a watering hole with a little bit of a legacy.
Yeah, if I were doing this concept, or like a restaurant for that matter, I would not be trying to do something trendy and new, just because those burn out so fast.
As opposed to the hot new such and such. And the more history, sometimes the better.
How would I do this today if I was going to do it? I would follow what Call Her Daddy did, which is Alex Cooper. She hosts these pop-up bars now. I heard through the grapevine, I don't know if this is true, sorry Alex if it's not, that she made $9 million at the pop-up that she did at South by Southwest in Austin, Texas. Fascinating. It looks like a little bit of like a country western bar. People were lining up for hours. She used her platform.
I did not know that she did this. That's literally insane. Good for her though. And if she made 9 mil, also good for her. I would totally believe it though. The scale of Call Her Daddy, people don't realize how big that podcast is. It is as bigger than like the Joe Rogan podcast. And it's just insane. So I did not realize she was doing that. Good for her.
Platform to do it. She got it sponsored by a liquor company. She hung out for a couple nights with her friends. She wasn't there the whole time. People came in and out of it. They spent a ton of money on alcohol, having a good time. And she just popped in and out of existing bars, gave them a little bit of a face paint. But because it's only lasting for a week, I imagine that she spent basically nothing revamping this place. And it was all about a few cool signs here and there and on to the next place. How do I know that works? Well, she did it again at the Kentucky Derby. Now, do you have to be rich and famous to do a pop-up bar? No, absolutely not. Just come up with a cool theme. How many of you guys are sitting around on a Sunday or Saturday thinking, like, where do we want to go? Are we going to go to the same place? I don't know. Are we going to do it again? Or are we going to have a one-time experience? I love this pop-up bar idea.
I heard about Brandy first when I was
C.O. Bigelow. This is a pharmacy started in 1838, one of the longest standing pharmacies, now apothecaries back then. Think about this like, your local CVS back in the day. You can tell it's old because it looks like it is. This company is fascinating because they've always been known for making their own little proprietary blends. So back in the day, that was a bunch of herbal remedies. Today, that's things like compounds, let's say, that they do actually on site. It's also huge margins in that segment of the industry. What's cool here is their ownership, how they passed it down. This company has actually handed down ownership from employer to employee since the very beginning of this thing existing. So how does a business like this stay in business when you got CVS's all over the place? And that's where people go for their pharmaceutical needs. It's probably this one thing right here, which is they stock some weird shit.
So if you would have asked me a few years ago how to beat competitors like CVS and Walgreens, I would have said, don't try. That's a terrible idea. They're huge. But have you been in one of those things lately? They're awful. I think little stores like this are going to have a complete resurgence because we're a little bit tired of fluorescent lights, all of the terrible things on shelves for you. There's no curation. There's nothing local. There's nothing interesting.
Well, the big issue too with all of these like stores now is they lock everything behind glass because of the crime in these big cities, which is not good for business.
Mark my words, just like we have seen specialty supermarkets pop up, we are going to start seeing specialty corner stores. You know what the cool part about this is? That means that you could charge a premium. You'd want to put this in an area where there's a lot of people who have disposable income, cash, and you could actually have an outfit there where, like me, there's a store in Austin, Texas called Tiny Grocer, and every time I need a gift last minute, I kind of always forget, I run to the Tiny Grocer because they've got this cool curated gift segment too. In an era where you can get everything you need long term from CVS and Walgreens and Amazon now almost same day, or you can get it Instacarted to you, what's going to make you go into a store and do the impulse purchases, which is where actually these stores make all their money? You have to curate cool shit. So actually, I think this business model is super interesting on a go-for-it basis. You have to have some of the necessities, like the NyQuil, like the soda, like the medicine in the pharmacy in the back. But
yeah. Also, I don't know why my stream, it looks like it's back now. It just keeps coming and going. I don't know why it's getting blocked today. So interesting.
if you get the impulse purchases right up front, because you've got an eye and a unique curation, I think you can triple how much people spend on average in your store, which means you can beat CVS and Walgreens.
Yeah, the other thing with that, like anytime you're going against like any, let's say, incumbent business that already exists in the niche or industry that you're pursuing, you have to find your competitive advantage, which is exactly what she is saying here. You can't compete like same day, like long-term stuff you need, but if you can do like the really niche products that they're not going to carry in a store, or higher quality stuff, because like a lot of the CVS and Walgreens stuff is lower quality, that is your competitive edge.
Macy's. Although I probably wouldn't invest in retail, this bad boy's been around forever, way more than 100 years. You all know this story, or do you? I'm gonna tell you about it.
You know what's fascinating about Macy's? They're not actually a department store. What are they? They're a marketer. These guys are brilliant. They started out in 1924 as a dry goods company, then switched to clothing once they realized that dry goods are a commodity. They have the Macy's Day Parade, which is on Thanksgiving, which is one of the biggest events still in the United States 100 years later. They also...
Honestly, not so sure how Macy's is still in business. I feel like when I was growing up, they had a lot more brand authority, and now it's just like in the trash.
Started the Santa Claus sitting on the lap phenomenon. Is that true? That's what they say. I'm asking Christian.
I thought that was like Coca-Cola that started that phenomenon. At least I heard, but I have no idea. Maybe it was Macy's.
Because he has a history there. They started the Santa Claus sitting on the lap phenomenon in order to get people into the stores to sell a bunch of things. They also started this idea of window shopping. You know how you see all the window stuff and and the decorations and windows all over stores everywhere? That was Macy's because they realized they wanted to entice you into their store. That was their idea, which is fascinating because this thing started after a buyout and a recession left them in a massive issue. Here's how I would do it today. In fact, she's already doing this. This is Blogilates. I think she has the best retail strategy of anybody I've ever seen. She creates content so viral that is all actually an ad. She actually uses her audience to tell her the clothing that she thinks that she should create.
I have literally seen her designing those freaking hiking pants jumpsuits for the last 4 months. And, I'm not into it, but you know what? Her TikToks are so viral, they end up on my For You page. So if you can be a better marketer than your competitors, you're going to beat them.
And so she's drawing these images nonstop of different outfits. Then she sends them out to a few people, has them try them on. They create UGC, user-generated content, push it out for her. And by the end, she gets to use the entire process of creation as her ad. It's brilliant. She doesn't have to guess what's going to work because her audience tells her. And then she posts her L's nonstop like this. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. This is a hiking, fishing, camping, synthetic onesie with a mosquito head cover in case you need it, a zippable ability for you to go 1 and 2 in the wilderness should you need it, and also turns into a tent, which is just fucking
What?
ridiculous. And the reason she created this is because she created gardening coveralls, and people are like, that's not it. So she went the opposite extreme. This
Yeah, the hiking coverall thing, like I said, is just so stinking funny.
documenting, creating in real time, seeing if the audience want it, and then she pre-orders like a crazy person, meaning before that she creates a product in the beginning, she often allows for pre-orders to see if people would buy it. I would copy Blogilates' model. Most people focus on what's changed. I instead think you should focus on what's
Here's the other thing that I would add to that is sometimes you don't even need to create your own product. Sometimes you can just be an affiliate if you just want to leverage or learn that one skill of marketing. Because when you're being an affiliate, you don't have any of the upfront capital. You don't have to be an expert designer. You don't need all of these other things. You can literally just kill it from the start if you can figure out how to market.
never changed. And thus, maybe what's not gonna change. That's the difference between the people who have businesses that last for decades and even 100 years, like this business. So while everybody else is out there chasing the next shiny object, the next AI, the next get rich quick, around here we do things differently. We do things where we only have to do it once, and we get to sell continuously, and we get to actually live our lives while we're doing it. That's what we talk about at this channel. So if you like it, subscribe. Maybe you're one of us.
Spectrum Mobile's new deal is...
So I think, I don't think we're done. I felt like we were done, but I don't think we're done. Oh, we are done. Wow. So long video there, lots of great stuff. Looks like my stream is back. I guess maybe you just didn't like the Cody Sanchez video today. Kind of wild. Hopefully this doesn't show up on the recording, which I know is where a lot of you guys watch this. Anyways, like she said, if you get any value from this channel, please subscribe. And there's just tons of ways where you can make money. There's tons of businesses you can buy. There's tons of businesses you can start with little to no capital down today. Just figure out what you want to do and start doing it and give it time. Success is a function of time. So the more time you put in, the more success you are going to achieve.